Hi everyone, it's Sienna. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a subject that I have been actually wanting to talk about for a very long time. And it kind of all comes down to why I started my YouTube channel. About 4 years ago, I was experiencing, not 4 years ago, I'm 23. Oh my gosh, I thought for a second I was like 19 when I was 16. So how long ago was that? 7 years? 7 years ago. Okay. About 7 years ago, I was experiencing some of the most hardships that I went through in my life. I had a really hard time dealing with all my inner emotions, and I was going to therapy, and I truly felt like there was no tomorrow. Sometimes my boyfriend asks me certain questions like, oh, like he'll talk about the future, and I'm like, I really don't know. Like, I really didn't think I was gonna be alive for this long. I'm so sorry if I'm going to be smiling and laughing when I'm talking about such serious subjects. It's just how I cope with it, I guess, for the longest time, and talking about it sometimes makes me laugh because that's how I was dealing with it for so long, and I still have trouble talking about it in a very serious tone. I'm not trying to like make light of the situation or make jokes about it. It's just how I've been coping. I like being vulnerable, but I just don't want to cry so much, so I think that's why I kind of like try to laugh and lighten the mood. I remember feeling very alone during those times, and I felt like I was the only person going through it until I started researching more about it and watching more YouTube videos. One of my favorite YouTube videos that I like to watch was Katie. She's a therapist on YouTube, and she talked about certain topics that I was going through at the time, and that made me realize that it's not just me going through it. And then once I started my own healing process, I realized that I wanted to talk about it more, to open up the conversation so that we can help each other and hear each other out, and to know that we're not alone. The main topic I want to talk about today is what I was diagnosed with when I was 18. So I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and BPD. It was the first time I heard about it, so I researched more about it when I got home, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally my life. Like, this is who I am. And I heard that it's a very rare condition. It's a mental health condition. So I think that it would be helpful to those that might be going through some of the things that I went through or am still going through, and open up that conversation. So what is BPD? BPD stands for borderline personality disorder, which is a very rare mental health condition. And it affects things like your mood swings or unstable relationships and impulsiveness. So people that are struggling with BPD have a really hard time of feeling like they are being neglected or abandoned, and they have a hard time controlling their intense emotions, like being super angry or being super sad. We tend to show really impulsive and dangerous behaviors when we are at our lows, and this obviously will affect our relationships and close friendships all around us. So many people with BPD actually don't even know that they have it. This might just get worse because your relationships around you are going downhill and you have no idea why, and you don't know how to control it. You don't know how to regulate your emotions. So if I'm talking about it and you relate to any of this, I highly suggest you see a professional therapist and see if they can diagnose you with it, and you'll be able to find the right treatment for you later on. But I want to make this video for people that, like I said, might have it or do have it, or people that know of people that might have it, so that we are able to know how to deal with these situations. BPD, your mood and your behavior, they change rapidly in response to a significant amount of stress, especially with other people. So for me, when I am going through a very stressful time in my life, it kinds of a BPD may appear when you are in your late teenage years or in your early adulthood, which is exactly what happened to me. And any trauma or a very stressful experience may trigger it or make it worse. But it's important to know that it is treatable over time. It does decrease or it does go away completely. I'm very grateful and fortunate that I am able to sit here and talk about this subject with you guys, because literally a couple years ago I would have like broken down, and I think it is definitely true what they say, that time is the best medicine, because during that time when you're going through it, it feels like the end of the world. Like, it feels like you're never gonna heal from this. It feels like you're like broken, or you don't know how to control yourself, and the world seems like a very dark place. I remember going to my therapist and I was like, I really don't know how long it's going to last. I wish someone would tell me like, oh, this is going to be another year, this is going to be another 5 years, this is going to be another 10 years. And then I was like, if it's going to be 10, 20 years, I don't think I can do that. But sitting here today, my symptoms are almost gone. I don't want to say like it's completely vanish. It is almost gone because I learned how to deal with it better and deal with my emotions better. And I just have a much more positive mindset now. I truly understand when people say sometimes healing is not complete. Like, you don't wake up one day and you're completely healed. It might be a lifelong process, but I'm okay with that. I have to live with myself for the rest of my life, and I feel like it's important to know my triggers and to know what makes me happy, to know what makes me upset. So I'm going to talk about some of the symptoms for BPD. The very first one is fear of abandonment, fear of feeling like you're being neglected, especially if you form a very close relationship with someone. You fear that one day they're gonna wake up and they're not gonna like you anymore. We tend to lash out at people that we are getting close to, but then if we don't feel like we are important in their lives anymore, that's when we tend to lash out, and that's when relationships can get really badly affected and become very unstable. I feel like for me, the closer I formed a relationship with someone, the crazier I got, and the more I pushed away in fear of getting rejected one day. For me, I felt like healthy relationships were impossible because my view of others during that time, and sometimes I still struggle with it now, is that it's very unstable and it's very dramatic. For example, if I have an argument with a friend, or if I feel like they're like mad at me or something, people can't be happy all the time. They might be going through something as well. Or if, for example, they invite me out and I say no, I felt that was the end of the world. But now it's like, they're not gonna hate you for that. People are so focused on their own lives more than you think, that yes, even being online, I might get a hate comment here and there, but it's important to not let that bother me and affect my view of how I see myself. Because everyone has struggles, everyone has insecurities, and that person is not going to be thinking about me all their lives. But because of these dramatic views of how we see other people, one time or one day we might idolize them. We might think, oh my gosh, that person is so great. And then the next day we might think that person is a horrible person. And it's just like that in an instant. So it's very chaotic and unstable. When I look back at the relationships that I had, it could be like with boyfriends or even like friendships. Actually, I didn't really have a lot of boyfriends, but just looking back at all the relationships that I formed over the years, it was very unstable and it was extremely chaotic. But it's important to note that the older I get, the less F's I give, if that makes sense. Before, I was so scared to tell someone how I feel. I was so scared to tell my friend, oh my gosh, I don't think I can go out tonight because I don't want to. But now it's like, at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to live with myself. I'm gonna have to live with my choices and my consequences. So it's important that you follow your own head and your heart. It's only until you realize that in this world, and I don't say that to be like daunting, in this world, it's just me. So it's important that you love yourself, that you love your body, you love your mindset, and you nourish it. Because the moment you put others first in front of you, which is what I do and did, and it's something I'm working on, the moment you put other people before you, you're gonna realize that every night you're going to bed with someone that is not happy. With unstable relationships all around, you're going to have a very unstable view of yourself. I felt like who I am, I didn't know who I was. Everything was very unclear, distorted, and I would feel bad. But then I would feel bad for feeling bad. And sometimes it's important to let yourself have a bad day, because you can't have good days all the time. And the moment you start hating on yourself, like, why can't I get out of bed today? Why can't I do this? It's just gonna get worse and worse. So sometimes I would be doing a lot better, and then I would do things to sabotage my process. And then I would go back to, this is why I can't heal. I'm such a bad person. And it's only until I started seeing a therapist that specializes in BPD and having a boyfriend who's very caring and supportive next to me and will let me know straight up And I feel like you need people like this that they're not going to continue make excuses. Like if you're having a bad day, okay, you can have a bad day. But sometimes you need a wake up call. Like, no, you are not this person. And all these thoughts are in your head. Sometimes I would surround myself with people that, let's say I'm feeling down, and then I'm telling them that I'm feeling down, and they say, oh no, like that must, feel really bad. They sympathize with me. But sometimes that's not what you need. What you need is someone that's like, no, these are all in your head. Wake up. The people around you love you. You are, they lift all the good things about your life. And then that's when you realize that once you have a thought that's like, what if this happens? What if that is simply your voice inside your head? You need to get out there and realize that that is not what's happening right now. If that does happen, you can deal with it then. I would think like some bad things that would happen, like even for me and my boyfriend dating, I was like, okay, what if we don't see each other? Because I was living in Toronto, and then I had to come back to Korea, and we had to do long distance for 2 years. No one told us that it was going to be 2 years. We just waited until things got better. We just kept waiting. Back then I was like, I just wish someone would let me know. Again, same thing with what I questioned my therapist is, I wish people would let me know, like, hey, I know this sucks, but you're only going to be doing this for 6 months, a year, 2 years. But back then, we didn't know how long we are going to be doing long distance for. And my boyfriend's a very like chill, well-collected person that sometimes I would freak out and be like, what if we don't see each other for a year? And then he's like, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We ended up not seeing each other for 2 years, and it was fine, and it will be fine. Sometimes things are worse in your head, and even if that worst case scenario does happen, you are going to be fine. The next symptom of BPD is having crazy mood swings. So one day you'll be so happy, so in love with your life, so grateful. In 30 minutes, you're going to hate your life. I couldn't deal with my own emotions. I still sometimes get super sad out of nowhere. Like, I let myself sit down and think too much. I get so depressed out of nowhere. But it's important to give yourself a breather every now and then and get a reality check that this is not happening right now and I'm going to be fine. Because of these crazy mood swings, it's going to lead to reckless and impulsive behavior, which is something that I struggle with the most. Things like reckless drinking, not knowing how to control your limit and your alcohol, and then that is literally the worst thing. If you're already going through so much emotional distress, and mixing alcohol with that is just not a good combination. I was fighting with people a lot. This would lead to self-destructive behavior. That's why I try to change my mindset every single day and to be grateful of this life, because there's so many things that as we live our daily lives, things that we overlook, things that seem very normal for us. Like, of course, yes, I live in a house. But you don't realize that you never know. Like, one time I was struggling with paying rent in Toronto. So this is a great blessing to have, to be able to live here and know that you can afford rent, know that you can afford all the delicious food in the world. Like, if I go out, I can be like, yes, I want chicken tonight, I want this tonight. But then back in Toronto, I had a really hard time buying food. Like, I literally lived off of like 50-cent ramen from the store. This is something that I still struggle with, is feeling extremely empty. Sometimes I wake up and literally, like, I tell my boyfriend that sometimes I literally feel like there's like nothing in my heart. Like, I feel super empty. I don't know where that comes from. Well, obviously it might come from the BPD, but I've been struggling with that for like many years now, where I just wake up and it's not any emotion, it's just feelings of emptiness, and that drives me crazy, which is why I really appreciate going on trips. Is the thing too, like, you have to find things that specifically work for you. Being in Korea, I developed many different hobbies. So I started knitting, I started making like bags out of rattan. I started going to a lot more interactive cafes where we paint, we draw, we make pottery. So things like that, it just really heals me. So finding activities that you really enjoy. For the longest time, I was painting. I am not a painter, but it helped me in my anxiety a lot to come home every day and just paint whatever I was feeling. Another symptom of BPD is that you have a lot of bitterness in your heart, and that's what I was feeling. I had a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger around the things and the people around me, and if someone was doing really well in their lives, even though they were my close friend, I felt very bitter. And it's such such an ugly trait to have, because not only does it ruin the relationships around you, but it also ruins yourself. Especially now with social media on Instagram, if you go, everyone's posting the highlights of their lives and all the good things in their lives. And it's like constant. When you go down the feed, someone's traveling, someone's getting engaged, someone's bought a house, all these things. The moment you start feeling bitter is the moment you start projecting that out into the world, and that's the state of your heart. Something that I really needed to work on was to say, oh my gosh, congratulations, and actually mean it. To know that because their life is successful doesn't mean that my life isn't. Something that I also struggle with after being diagnosed is finding the right therapist and the right help. I just thought, okay, the doctor diagnosed me with BPD, so I asked them, what therapist can I go to? They recommended a couple and I went to see them, but after a while they kept recommending other people to me, and I didn't know where that was coming from until I learned that it's kind of hard to treat BPD patients, because when you have a therapist session, you want to open up, but then the moment we open up, it's like another fear of neglect. Like, we might get attached to our therapist and lash out on them. So a lot of therapists say that it's kind of draining to treat BPD patients. That's why they recommend BPD patients to seeing a specialist for that department. So I had a hard time finding a therapist, but for me, I just needed someone to talk to, so I didn't really have a hard time getting attached to my therapist or lashing out or anything like that. It did help me a lot. She taught me that I need to focus on my surroundings a lot, especially when I'm having a lot of anxiety. I would count the things around me. If I'm lost in my thoughts, it would help me bring me back to reality and not just to live in my head. So I would count the colors of the room. I would do breathing exercises to help me feel more grounded. And I really learned how to control my emotions that I felt was uncomfortable. And it's really important to learn to observe your thoughts. If you're having a bad thought, you need to mark it and be like, okay, this is a bad thought that doesn't come from a place of reality. And I know it's a lot harder than it sounds, but over time it does get better. That sometimes I'll have thoughts that I literally have trouble breathing from, but it's important to be like, okay, this is just a thought, this is not reality, and to push those feelings down. Now, I am Christian, and finding God in my life helped me tremendously. I was on medication for a while, and then I had a really bad experience with medication. I do believe that it does help for a bit, but then it's definitely not a long-term goal. People can agree on that. Whether you're Christian or not Christian, getting on medication is not a long-term thing. It does help in the moment, but over time I was getting really dependent on these, and I realized that it was not good for my health or even for my mental health. And I had a very bad experience with it. It was very scary. People always ask me how I dealt with it, and I would say that it's literally okay, medication does help, but for me, finding a lot of peace and finding my worth in Jesus helped me so much. I remember after I was admitted into the hospital, and then the day after, I was fully out of it for the next couple 2 months. There's a big chunk of my life that I don't remember at all, and that's very scary. But my boyfriend was there during that time, and then he had to explain it to me now that I'm a lot better now about the things that I was going through and how I was behaving. And he said that it was a very hopeless time, because normally when someone acts like that, you send them to a doctor and then you get them help. But then I was at a doctor's, but I didn't really get the right help. Because at the end of the day, it's if I'm not willing to help myself, then it's really hard for others to help me too. That's when I started going to church with my friends, and I felt overwhelmed with love, and I just felt like there was someone watching over me, because for the longest time it felt like I'm very alone, I'm very, no one loves me, and I'm very worthless. I was struggling with those kind of emotions, but then after going to church and praying more and really feeling the presence of God in my life, that's when I realized that these thoughts are so useless. These thoughts come from the little devil himself. And then once I started reading the Bible more, it helped me see that there's a lot of, spiritual things that happen in our lives, and these thoughts literally come from the devil. It helped me a lot in knowing that not just, oh my gosh, these thoughts are from the devil, we live in a very spiritual world, but to know that I can always count on Jesus and to know that I have him on my side and I'm able to fight off those thoughts. I know I'm getting all religious, but I'm telling you guys, I'm just sharing my testimony. Like, that's just something that helped me a lot. And the biggest thing is to be aware of your emotions. If you're going through a hard time, you need to be aware. Whatever you say to your friends does affect them in the long run too. Like, I thought I could just say whatever, and I was saying whatever, and a lot of my friends were hurt by the things that I said, but I never once stopped. Like, I never once stopped and reflected on my actions. And it was only until literally, like, everything. No, but my boy, I don't want to keep saying like my boyfriend, but then my boyfriend was there for me, like, literally, like, through everything. So I need to, like, talk about it because he's the one that explained it to me. And he said that there's a lot of times when I was not able to sympathize with another person. So if I said something horrible and the other person's like, I'm hurt by what you said, I was like, okay, like, I'm aging backwards. Like, I feel like I was better at this when I was younger, being able to sympathize and put myself in other people's shoes. But now that I'm older, it's so hard for me to sympathize with the other person. It's so hard for me to give advice, which is so weird. I don't say that to be like, I'm such a horrible person, like, you guys, like, people with BPD are horrible people. I'm not saying that, but sometimes I do notice that we do things and we say things and we just expect other people to understand because we have this. We fail to see that other people are human too, and our words have swords. So we can't just say whatever we want, do whatever we want, and expect others to be understanding. So like I said, if you are struggling with BPD or any of the symptoms that I mentioned above, make sure you get professional help and know that this is a safe space. I found that talking to other people that understood what I was going through helped me so much to know that you are not crazy, because the voices in your head and all those thoughts, and we need to learn how to control them. And just know that time is the best medicine. So over time, I know it seems like the end of the world right now, but over time things will get so much better. I'm now at a place where I could not have seen myself 3 years ago. We all have a very bright future and we can get through it. And we just need to be more kind to ourselves, to be kind to other people. So that's just something that I wanted to talk about today. I'll be back with some more like bright, fun videos. I do want to make more videos on how I dealt with my anxiety and like my PTSD. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll be back next time. Bye!